Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have some huge news to talk about today. I'm a little under the weather, but we got this big BNR announcement, so I just had to do a video and talk about it. Winota banned in Pioneer, Expressive Iteration in Pioneer, and also in Explorer. So that's what we're talking about today, this huge, awesome, exciting BNR announcement. But before we jump into it, a quick reminder that if you need some Pioneer cards, you can get them from our awesome sponsor Card Kingdom over at cardkingdom.com/MTGGoldfish, and even get a free goldfish sticker. Just let them know you want one in your order notes and they'll hook you up. So anyway, let's start with the easy one. Winota is banned in Pioneer. It was already banned in Explorer a few weeks ago. It was banned in Standard a couple of years ago, and this makes a ton of sense. Winota is essentially a mistake card. It was printed in Ikoria, the same set as Companions, during the broken era of Magic, where Wizards just forgot to check their power level with a whole bunch of cards and broke things across formats. It has been at the top of the Pioneer meta for quite a while now, and it was 100% correct to ban Winota, in my opinion. So if you look at the history of Pioneer Winota, in the early days, it wasn't that big of a problem. The decks that played Winota weren't actually all that good. People were trying to put like Agent of Treachery and other big uncastable stuff into play, which made the deck play like a glass cannon combo deck, essentially, where if you killed Winota, the deck was really clunky and couldn't really win, but if Winota came down and stuck, it was probably going to win the game, which was mostly fine. But then there were a couple of huge evolutions that really revolutionized Winota in Pioneer, which brought it from kind of a good but janky glass cannon deck into the best deck in the format for a prolonged period of time. So the biggest thing that happened was returning to Innistrad for a third time, which gave us a bunch of human/non-human werewolves, cards like Brutal Cathar, Tovolar's Huntmaster. These cards greatly improved Winota, taking it from kind of just another deck in Pioneer to one of the best decks in the format. The power of these cards is that in the deck, they're humans, so Winota can find them, but then once they're on the battlefield, you can flip them into non-humans, so they can trigger Winota, so it really just did everything Winota wanted. Plus, Tovolar's Huntmaster, I mean, it comes down, it makes two 2/2 wolves. It's essentially a Grave Titan that Winota could find, which gave the deck this really powerful, synergistic, and most importantly, castable finisher. And gone were the days of trying to get an uncastable Agent of Treachery into play. You could just jam a Tovolar's Huntmaster and win the game. The other big thing that happened to this deck is it became just a good mid-range deck that also had these free Winota removal check wins. Cards like Izzet's Chariot, Fable the Mirror Breaker were added to the deck, and those are both cards that can win games on their own, essentially. Like, you can just play an Izzet's Chariot, and in a couple of turns, if it doesn't die, it's going to win the game. If you can flip a Fable of the Mirror Breaker and copy some stuff, you're going to win the game. And these are both cards that, along with Voice of Resurgence, take multiple removal spells, which made it really, really difficult to do the old just, okay, I'll just sit on my removal, wait until my opponent plays Winota, I'll kill Winota and I'll be fine. If you don't kill the Chariot, if you don't kill the Fable of the Mirror Breaker, you're going to end up losing to those cards, Winota or no Winota, which really pressured players' removal. There's so many games against Winota, and my everlasting memory of playing against that deck is going to be trying to hold my removal for Winota, but then having to kill an Izzet's Chariot, or having to kill a Fable of the Mirror Breaker, which then gives the Winota player a window to play the Winota. If you got to spend your removal on other things, you got less removal for Winota. So turning into like a legit deck with a legit backup plan of just being a good mid-range deck, that took Winota from being kind of another tier 2 option, or even like a lower end tier 1 option, into like legitimately the best deck in the format for a prolonged period of time. It's been at the top of the meta for 9 months now, 10 months now, at least since Innistrad came out in the fall, and that's why the deck had to go. If you add all this up, I don't think there's even any argument. I think players are generally very happy that Winota's gone. I'm very happy that it's gone. It's just a mistake card that has been banned in multiple formats and kept getting better set by set by set. I know one thing people like to say when there's a banning is like, oh, just play answers. I don't want to see cards banned. Just play stuff that answers that card. Well, you had 9 months to play answers to Winota. It's been at the top of the meta. Everyone has a target on this deck. Everyone's trying to beat this deck, and Winota is still there. It's still beating people down. So apparently in this case, because of how Winota works, and because of how strong the deck was, you just couldn't answer it. There was no way. If it was going to happen, it would have happened, but now Wizards gave players a lot of time to be able to answer Winota, and we failed. We didn't find an answer for it. So I'm super happy that it's gone, and I think it's going to be a very positive thing for the format. The other thing that Winota did that was a huge negative is basically just push any other creature midrange deck out of the format. Like, why would you ever play another creature midrange deck if you could do the same thing but also get free wins with Winota with the Winota deck? So it really reduced the diversity of the format and made a lot of cool archetypes playable. I ran into this myself a ton of times, right? So I have this cool idea for a Pioneer deck, and I'd start building it, and it ended up being a mid-range creature deck, and I'd be like, okay, this is like, looks sweet, it's got a lot of fun cards, it's probably kind of good, but it's going to be better if it has Winota in it. I might as well, if I'm going to play this play style of mid-range creature deck, I might as well just have the free win potential of Winota. That's going to make my deck more competitive. So I think that this banning, along with getting rid of the frustrating removal check play pattern where it's just like, oh, can you answer it, can you not answer it, along with getting rid of that, getting rid of the annoying free wins, it's also going to increase the diversity of Pioneer, I believe, which I think is going to be a good thing. And if you're a Winota player, I don't know, I think there's a chance that some sort of Naya mid-range deck could actually still be pretty good. Like, Fable the Mirrorbreaker is a strong card. Ezekiel's Chariot's a strong card. The 1-mana mana dorks that see play in the Winota deck are kind of a hallmark of the Pioneer format. Llanowar Elves, Elvish Mystic. So I think there's probably still something there. Is the deck going to be as good as it is now with Winota? No, because Winota's a broken card that should have never been printed, but I think that you can still make a pretty functional and powerful and maybe even good mid-range deck that's very similar to Winota, taking advantage of all the other good mid-range cards, even with Winota being banned. So I don't think it'll be too painful of a banning. Obviously, if you just got into Pioneer and you bought Winota, it's going to be painful there. Like, they kind of got wrecked, which is sad. That's the worst part of any banning. But I think overall, this is going to greatly improve the Pioneer meta. As far as Expressive Iteration, this is a little bit of a trickier one because it's not as obviously powerful as Winota. Winota's got a deck named after it. There's no deck named Expressive Iteration. It's just a random uncommon card draw spell. But really, this card is so busted. It has been everywhere in essentially every format in Magic ever since it was printed. Like, seriously, as soon as it came out in Strixhaven, it just started showing up in more and more decks. Right now, it's in 30% of the decks in the Pioneer meta, which is a really, really big number. It's one of the most played cards in the format, and it shows up in everything from, like, Izzet Phoenix to various control decks to combo decks like Jeskai Ascendancy to aggro decks like Prowess. So it's just really across archetypes. And for me, the biggest argument for Expressive Iteration, just being a straight-up mistake, is just looking at the state of various competitive metas since it was printed just over a year ago. Izzet decks and Blue-Red X decks have literally dominated and been at the top of the meta in every single format. And I'm talking every format, from Standard all the way back through Legacy at least, Modern, Historic, Pioneer, you name it, those decks have been at the top of the meta. And just look at the bannings that we've had since Strixhaven released last April. In Historic, Brainstorm, Time Warp, Memory Lapse, those were all targeted at Izzet decks. Izzet control decks, Izzet Phoenix style decks. You go to Standard, we had Elrond's Epiphany, Divide by Zero banned, which were mostly played in Izzet Dragons, Izzet Lear, Izzet Control. Go back to Legacy, Ragavan was banned, specifically to target Izzet Delver, and it's still the best deck in the format, even post-banning. And what do all these decks, what do all these cards have in common? They're Expressive Iteration decks. Like, that's the bottom line. Kind of feels like Wizards spent the last year trying to ban all these Izzet cards, these Izzet payoffs, the Time Warps, the Elrond's Epiphanies, the Ragavans, and kind of just missing the fact that what really made these decks so busted was the consistency and card advantage of Expressive Iteration. That's the card that came out, and suddenly Izzet went from a color combination to the best color combination in every single format in Magic. So for me, the question shouldn't be, why was it banned? I mean, it's clear. It was just too efficient. It did too much for its mana cost. The question I have is, why did it take so long to be banned in Pioneer, and where is it going to get banned next? I think if you look at the percentages, how often this card's played, I mentioned earlier 30% in Pioneer, but that's not really that much different than Legacy, which is 26%, Modern, Historic, 24%. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Expressive Iteration over the course of the next few months, the next year, be banned in more formats, especially since if you look look at the metagame page, Izzet is still at the top in every single format, from standard all the way back through legacy, so nothing's really changing. So I think we're going to see more bannings of Expressive Iteration. The card is just really overpowered and too good and too efficient when it does, and it is given this Izzet meta, which is fine. Some color combination is going to be at the top in each format, but it is very strange to see this color combination, as soon as Expressive Iteration was printed, jump to the top of the meta in every single format. One last thing on Expressive Iteration, Wizards specifically mentioned banning it so they could keep Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise, the big delve card draw spells, legal in the Pioneer format. And I don't know how I feel about this. I'm kinda in camp Treasure Cruise, Dig Through Time should just be banned and they're kinda busted, but I do think this is a fool's errand, so to speak, and sooner or later, those cards are gonna have to get banned anyway. So, I don't know, I think we're just gonna keep getting more cheap cantrips, more cheap ways to fill the graveyard, and the more ways we get to fill the graveyard in turn on delve, the better those cards get. So they're never gonna get worse, they're just gonna keep getting better. So I still think it's only a matter of time. Even with Expressive Iteration being banned, sooner or later, Dig and Cruise are gonna have to go. But if you're a fan of those big delve card draw spells, I do think this banning is gonna buy a little bit of time. There's no way Wizards just gonna ban Treasure Cruise or Dig Through Time next BNR, next month, next set release, whatever. Now that they just banned Expressive Iteration, I think they're gonna wait a while, see how things shake out, but I do firmly believe that sooner or later, they're gonna have to ban those delve spells anyway, because delve is just such a broken mechanic. So anyway, so that's the news of the day. Winota banned in Pioneer, Expressive Iteration banned in Pioneer and Explorer. So those are my thoughts. I think these are both great changes. They're going to make Explorer much more fun, much more diverse, a little bit less degenerate, but I want to know what you think. What do you think of these bannings? Are you excited? Did you get wrecked? Did the deck that you just built get banned out for Buttery? I know it feels so bad. Let me know what you think about these changes in the comments, and also what do you think about Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise? Now that Expressive Iteration is gone, are they just safe for the format, or are they still going to need to be banned again eventually? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.